Hello, everybody, and welcome back to From the Ground Up, Western Cover Crop Pacific Northwest Subregional Conference Series number 3. I'd like to welcome you. My name is Steve Hines. I'm with the University of Idaho Extension. Today's topics are going to focus on dryland and irrigated systems of the inland Pacific Northwest. I'd like to introduce our final speaker this afternoon, Jeremy Allen. Jeremy is the owner of Five Kingdoms Farm, and he's going to visit with you about cover crops on the Regenerative Farm, the first 1,000 days. Welcome, Jeremy.
I'm Jeremy Allen. If you saw our first webinar series, you know I'm also secretly the president of the Western Cover Crop Council. So first 1,000 days sounds a lot nicer than the first couple of years, 3 years and change. I'm originally from New England and moved out to Central Oregon. And here we are. So 1,000 days in 15 minutes. Let's see if we can get through it. So first we'll start off with where we're located and why we are so lucky to have all the perfect conditions that you wish you had on your farm. Then we'll talk about what we all agree on and why cover cropping is the multi-tool of solutions. We'll talk about my first epiphany and then my second epiphany, and then we'll wrap it up. I try to have the grand epiphany every year. That's kind of my one of my main goals of farming through observation. So I'll be sharing 2 of them today. All right, so where we're located, you know, and you'll be jealous about all of our amazing conditions, and you definitely won't be able to do all the amazing stuff that we can do here on the farm, but maybe something will be inspirational for you. So for starts, we are here in the solar system, and while the last year and change has felt like we've all lived on Uranus, we actually live on Earth. We are on the land mass here. We're not on the water, we're on the land. So somewhere in here on the brown. And since we're the high desert steppes, it's one of these red sections is where we're located. So yeah. So soil is really important. Everyone knows that our soil is amazing. You just get ready to look at these great pictures here. So sometimes it looks like, well, okay, well, so this is one shot. This is kind of, we have sandy soil and there's some rocks in there, some lava rocks, but okay, well, here's a better okay, here we go. So we got some organic matter in certain sections, and all right, well, actually this is mostly what our soil looks like. Lots of lava rock. We have lots of rock. So so we look at these images, and maybe if you have anything that looks like this in your soil, maybe you can actually do some of the stuff that we're doing. Rainfall. So depending on who you ask, and these are all, I just was Googling what our annual rainfall was here, and I saw as high as 43 inches a year and as low as 3 inches a year. I'd stick with that third one, the 13.62. That's probably the most accurate. That's the Western Regional Climate Center. And then just for reference, even though the data is from 1958 to 2006, so we've been missing the last 14 years, about 20.58 inches was our highest we'd seen in a year in 1981, and then 8.62 was the lowest we'd seen. We do irrigate here on farm. We have wheel lines, and we do some flood irrigation here, but we have actually had some seasons where we didn't irrigate at all. So our farming practices, we use no chemistry at all, nothing organic or conventional in terms of fertilizers, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides. We don't use anything like that. We do not do any tillage. The last time this farm was tilled was in 2014. We use a no-till drill for planting our seeds, but not even disking, not even even the smallest amount. We do absolutely zero soil disturbance. And then the model is ecosystem farming, which is kind of incorporating, and the name of the farm is Five Kingdoms Farm, which is an homage to the 5 kingdoms of life. So animals, plants, fungi, and then there's 2 different kinds of bacteria. We utilize those for our composting systems and fermenting when we make ferments that we sell. But we got cows, pigs, chickens. We use trees for biomass, trees for fruit. We have berries. We use annuals. I cultivate mushrooms both in the soil as well as in logs. We have honeybees, and then we facilitate native habitat for all of our native species here. Okay, so what we all agree on. So this might be a little uncomfortable for some people, depending on what science you are into or not into, but something wicked this way comes. It was global warming before. Now, of course, we like to call it climate change. And the latest, and I think more apt description, is climate destabilization. This is all relevant stuff because this is how we're going to survive. Of course, really, when it comes down to it, ask any old timer, and it just is weird weather. And find anybody who's been doing this for over 20, 30 years, and they will tell you that the weather that they remember as children is very different than the weather that they are observing now. And this is something that we need to just be aware of. Nature needs to be a balance, and it's our objective as humans on this planet, from my perspective, to live in balance with nature ourselves. Nature is winning this right now, and it's in a constant state of rebalancing. And so when there is something that is out of balance, just like your chemistry equations from high school, there will be something to bring it back into equilibrium. Nature also fills in the gaps. Whenever we leave an open spot, nature likes to fill that in. We usually call those weeds. And even more to weeds, disturbed soil stimulates growth. Whenever we mess with the soil, that triggers a reaction in the soil to stimulate the pioneer species of plants to grow. Well, again, we often call those weeds, but we have an opportunity to take this and use it to our advantage, and so enter the cover crops. Of course, this is not the panacea. This is not the final solution or the only solution to living in harmony with nature and being good agrarians, but this is a very multifaceted solution. So my first epiphany is that diversity reigns supreme. And we talk a lot about biodiversity when you talk about soil health principles, but from my direct observations on the farm, we found some things that were just a little bit different than even what I had been hearing. A lot of people, a lot of research goes on one species of cover crop or two species, and I'm really happy to have even seen in these presentations before mine that there are multiple species being mixed together and research being done on that. The magic number seems to be 7 species. However, we usually have been planting anywhere between 9 and 16 species together. And here's an example why. So this is a picture of my field, and I know these pictures don't come out great on the PowerPoints, but you can tell that there's a lot of biodiversity happening. There's a lot of plants growing. There's vetches and clovers. There's a bunch of different grasses here. Very diverse. This is only representing probably half of the species that I'd actually planted here. I took 3 steps to the left, turned around, and took this photo. This photo is a completely different grouping of plants. Same exact mix, same exact field, same exact, all of the conditions, at least theoretically, were the same, and yet it's so clear that different plants are growing different reasons. We've got kales, there's a calendula poking out there. We've got Phacelia. So even with a diverse mix, even in the same field, different areas will grow different plants. Here it is even again. So we've got some chamomile that came up in one section robustly, but wouldn't grow anywhere else. So having a significant number of species we found really kind of optimized the ability for the field to grow with plants that we still chose, instead of allowing kind of weedy species or species that we weren't interested in having. Now, this field was meant to be, it's both an experimental field as well as forage for cattle, but as well as pollination, as well as food for humans, as well as food for bird life and insect life. So really kind of, again, a multifaceted purposes, but very interesting to see that with even in the same field, huge diverse mixes bring out different species, even just in different areas. And then what's great is of course it attracts life. And so you see, we bring in insect life. The middle photo, it's hard to see, but there's a little praying mantis there clinging upside down to that grass. And then a little bit of a humble brag, but we started seeing amphibians showing up on the property last year. And it's said that amphibians, who are the most sensitive class of vertebrates to ecology, when they show up, that kind of really demonstrates a stable ecology for them to exist in. Here are some of the mixes that I've done in the past, and I won't go through all of them, but you can just tell we really we try to get as many different species in there, see who does well. And this is what I encourage other people to do. Don't just get 1 or 2, really try to push it and see if you can get 10 plus species, see who grows and where do they grow. And that can tell you a lot about your soil health. And we even noticed that we had planted white clover in one of our first years, and it barely came up. And I was really bummed, but I thought, okay, I guess white clover won't grow here. The next year, white clover exploded across the whole field. And it just, maybe it was the wrong timing when I planted it. Maybe it was a moisture issue, or the spring needed to be different, or the presence of animals had to stimulate the growth, but the seed was still present and it just needed an extra year to grow. Also, doing diverse mixes can really help to do kind of cost averaging of seed, as some seed is incredibly expensive and some is very cheap. So the more kind of species you bring in, the more kind of average out you can get your cost. So my second epiphany, and still trying to cruise along here, and this is just two of my many, but animals accelerate ecology. And again, I've seen a lot of people already today talking about animal integration, which is excellent. Unfortunately, I've just still seeing a lot of kind of separation and segregation. Animals are on one side, plants are on the other, and they co-evolved and they need to be with each other. So imported manure is just not enough. So this is an aerial shot of my fields last year. The top right field is a 40-acre field that we had been grazing cattle on in a high-intensity, short-duration grazing program, which is its own talk. And then the bottom right is our neighbor, which has a conventionally farmed industrial chemical hay field. So lots of, well, not lots of tillage. It's every 5 years we till, or they till. They use a lot of chemical fertilizer, and they use occasional herbicides. And then the brown field you see, that was my 20-acre field that had not seen any animals the previous year, and we had just been doing some different planting experimentations. This is June, by the way. 1 month later, you see a complete change in that 20-acre field. And what had happened was we intensively grazed it across 3 weeks, and then it had probably rested about a week before I took this photo. So just in 1 month's time, intensive impact from animals, their manure, their urine, their hoof prints, their saliva, all playing a very large role on the growth of that pasture. It was incredibly impressive just how much it had changed in just 1 month. So something to kind of demonstrate there. I also threw in some pictures here, just kind of how we graze a little bit. If you look on the left, you'll see all the little cows there, and the kind of the brownest of squares. They started in that southwest corner or bottom left corner, where you see those squares, and then they got moved up to the north, and then they're kind of they march eastwards, and they just kind of moved south into that next, what we call a tier, and then over to in the right photo, it's actually just 1 week later. So you can see just how quickly that huge square in that southwest corner has filled back in, and that north square. So animal impact is incredibly relevant, and the tighter you keep them and the faster you move them through, the better the impact is, as we have observed. I also pasture chickens for eggs. They're a different program, and I use a compost program, and where I divert food waste from various locations, grocery stores and restaurants, and we feed that to the chickens. We use organics. I'm not USDA certified organic. I'm just too small of an operation to make the cost worth it, and we sell out of everything all the time. So I'm just not there, but if I had the money, I would instantly qualify for USDA certified organic. We use organic food waste. We use, I mean, everything, again, organic here. But we move the chickens through really quickly, and we find that while we'd have tried the Salatin model of having chickens follow the cattle, because of our cattle grazing program, they move too quickly across the ground for the chickens to keep up. And because of the dryness of our climate, the cattle manure kind of dries out too quickly for the chickens to effectively scratch it apart. But overall, they do follow the cows, just not right behind them. And then, of course, animal integration is important, and the requisite family photo has to be included in everyone's PowerPoint. So we've got the Bos taurus in the back, which is the cattle. We've got the Gallus domesticus in the front here. And then, of course, the Homo sapiens neoaborigensis, which is my family. We try to live a wild lifestyle ourselves. And then, of course, you get products out of this. So we get a lot of great eggs. We have people who say that they can't eat eggs because they're allergic, but they can eat ours. And we just feel that's because of the pasturing process that we do. And then to the right, those are the rib steaks from the cows that are eating over 60 plants in the intensive rotation that we do here, which rivals all of the people, all the proponents of the grain-fed marbling. These cows only eat grain if they're on the end of a triticale or a barley stalk. I'm a big fan of Masanobu Fukuoka. I strongly advise people to read his writings. I love this quote. As a guy who has multiple university degrees in sciences, I do think it's important that we always remember that the more we learn, the less kind of we realize that we know. And so to put a little bit of trust in nature. And then, of course, as the president of the Western Cover Crop Council, it would be my, not just the president, but also the member. I do want to make a plug for our website, which is meant to connect people interested in cover cropping in the west of the United States. Please come check us out, westerncovercrops.org. And that's it. Go forth, plant some cover crops. Questions, insights, critiques, just feeling lonely, feel free to send me an email. You can reach out to me also through the Western Cover Crop Council website. Thanks so much.